SLU International Business Now, Conversations That Matter is a podcast developed by the Boeing Institute of International Business in St. Louis University's Chaffetz School of Business. Special thanks to founder Dr. Sung Kim for his grant to support the launch of this podcast.
What do the flavors of your favorite foods, the allure of a timeless fragrance, and the power of AI have in common? This is Lin Hemings, your host for today's episode of the SLU International Business Now Conversations That Matter podcast. Today, we are joined by IFF's VP of Digital Workplace, Rich Puskarich. Rich has a passion for tools and technologies that employees can use daily to stay productive and connected. With the explosion in popularity of AI, it's no surprise that Rich has dedicated significant time to exploring the possibilities of this transformative technology. We will learn about his journey with internationalizing the use of AI in a secure and responsible manner across the globe. Rich is going to help us answer this question: what do the flavors of your favorite foods, the allure of a timeless fragrance, and the power of AI have in common, as well as provide 3 guiding principles when considering grassroots IT initiative implementation. And he will also impart some wisdom for up-and-coming future global leaders listening today. Welcome, Rich. So excited to have you.
Thanks, Lynn. Happy to be here.
Great. So before we answer that provocative question, I like to get to know my guests. Are you okay with playing two truths and a lie about Rich?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, you know how it works, right?
I do. Yep. I'll give you 2 truths and 1 lie, and you'll try to figure it out, right?
Okay.
All right. So mine will be, first one is enjoys cycling. Second one would be plays guitar. Third one would be I'm a Marvel movie fan.
So enjoys cycling, plays guitar, and a Marvel movie fan. I'm going to go with Marvel movie fan as a truth, just because. Okay. Then as far as plays guitar or enjoys cycling, I'm going to guess that you enjoy cycling.
That's correct. Yeah. I've never learned to play a musical instrument before, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. And I'll be honest, I've contemplated purchasing a guitar recently, but really it's just a matter of having enough time to dedicate to it. I don't want it to sit in a corner and collect dust, right?
Well, it's never too late to learn something new, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Especially here talking about AI, right?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks for indulging me. It's nice to get to know a little bit about our guests, but back to business. So why don't you first tell us about IFF and your role there?
Yes. So, first, I'll talk about IFF, who we are as a company, that way our listeners have an idea who we are and exactly what we do. So IFF stands for International Flavors and Fragrances. We're a global company, 25,000 employees, and we're over 130 years old. So we've been around for quite a while. But to give you an idea of what it means, to make flavors and fragrances, just imagine you're in a grocery store, you're looking at the products on the shelves, and every single one of those products, or at least most of them anyway, have a flavor associated with them, whether it's a beverage or a dairy product or a snack, right? And those food manufacturers, they come to IFF and they say, hey, I need this flavor incorporated into this product. Maybe it's like vanilla or peppermint or whatever. And our flavorists will work with them to make sure that they produce the flavor that meets the customer's needs. Similar to that, fragrances, you look at those similar products on the shelf, and those products have a scent associated with them, whether it's a perfume or a cologne or laundry detergent or an air freshener, right? And those manufacturers, they come to us, and our perfumers will work with them to produce the scent that best meets their needs. And also about 2 years ago, we acquired a nutrition and biosciences company. So think food ingredients and food science. And examples of those would be soy protein that you might incorporate into a breakfast bar or a protein shake or even infant formula, or cultures that would go into a probiotic or a prebiotic or the making of cheese or the brewing of beer, right? So we could spend so much time talking about all the different products that IFF makes, but maybe the way I'd summarize it is, think back to that store. You're in that store, you're looking at the products on the shelves. Even if you're not familiar with who we were as a company, right? Chances are very high that the products that you see on the shelf have our ingredients or our science in them.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. We may not know IFF, but we probably know lots of scents and smells and
Exactly.
tastes. Nice. So tell us a little bit more about digital workplace and how you lead that at IFF.
Yeah, so I lead the digital workplace team at IFF. And if you're not familiar with what digital workplace is, think of all the tools and technologies that you have on your desktop today, right? From your PC to your mobile device, your collaboration tools where you store your files and you collaborate on them together, even the tools that you and I are using right now to record this podcast, right? Those are the types of tools and technologies that my team manages. And so we really truly are the interface that the employees use to access all the other tools and technologies within IFF. And of course, our goal is to deploy those technologies in a way that makes the employees as productive as they can be, and that overall they have a positive user experience.
So what trends are you seeing in the global world of digital workspace these days?
Yeah, and I think the trend is like we've seen over previous years, and even just overall in the IT industry, is that technology evolves and advances at such a rapid pace, and we're running really hard to keep up with that change of pace. And employees see these technologies in their personal life, like AI, right? And they see how these technologies make them productive at home, and they're anxious to bring it into the workplace. They want to see how these tools can make them productive in the office, right? And we want to capitalize on the, potential of that productivity, but you're always balancing that with making sure that the tools that you bring in are properly governed and they meet IFF standards, right? So any data that you're putting into that tool, we need to make sure that we fully understand what's happening to it.
The discussion reminds me a little bit of the GDPR conversations, right? And the governance and trying to enact that across the globe. What else? Are you seeing anything else?
I would say that's pretty much it, right? I mean, they see the explosive growth. I mean, you take the explosive growth of generative AI like ChatGPT, Midjourney, right? Those are two really good examples. Of course, the list goes on and on of what they see and what they want to incorporate here.
Yeah. So we all want to take advantage of it. I've used it personally. I've used it professionally as well. So can you share some examples of how IFF is actually using AI around the world?
Yeah. So maybe I'll share maybe 2 or 3 with you here. So first one, and we all know AI has been around for a long time, more than just what we see from the generative aspects like the Chat GPTs and the Midjourney. But one traditional way of always using AI is, let's say you have that big, massive database or repository of information, and it's using machine learning or very complex algorithms to manage that, or to mine that data set and try to, find other use cases for the data. An example, maybe I'll go back to, we talked about the flavorists and the perfumers, right? So if we have that big database of flavors or, scents, not only the chemical makeup of it, but we can also start to log the emotions that those flavors or fragrances convey. So whether it's uplifting or energizing, or it gives you a feeling of warmth, right? Because our customers will come to us and say, hey, I need this particular scent and it needs to evoke this type of emotion, right? And even just knowing that an emotion in one geographic location that could be perceived as positive may not always be perceived as positive in a different geographic location, right? So how do you manage all those different data points? I mean, obviously we have very talented and skilled employees that have been doing this for many years, but AI can also, sort of ride along with them, so to speak, to analyze and mine that data set, maybe to come up with different combinations of those flavors or scents that we hadn't thought of before.
That could be a whole nother podcast. I find that
Absolutely.
just fascinating.
Yep, absolutely.
What other examples do you have?
Yeah, and so if that's the traditional method of, and I think the traditional method sometimes assumes that you have a really well organized data repository and it's normalized, right? Everything we would think of from a database. What do you do with your unstructured data? Your Word documents or your big PDF documents. Maybe you have hundreds of thousands of those documents. maybe if you took it like R&D examples, some of those could be 80 to 90 pages long each, right? So you put all those documents in that repository. How do you find the ones you're looking for, right? And not only the one you're looking for, but scroll to the exact page where that answer might be. But also too, if you have hundreds of thousands of documents back in this repository, how do you establish relationships between documents where it can look across those documents and pull meaningful information together? So we use generative AI to help with taking a look at that unstructured data.
Yeah, that will be a huge help just in companies with, legacy systems and data repositories. My experience is there's a lot of information across a lot of tools, and trying to pull that together, especially for onboarding or trying to solve issues, challenges, pulling the appropriate data together. AI would be huge for that. What else?
I'd say the third one is probably personal productivity. So think of using AI, to just help with the minutia, right? Or the things that just cause that mental drain in your day. Maybe it's 3 p.m. on a Friday and you've procrastinated. You've got that draft document that you've got to put together, and you're just sitting there looking at an empty Word document, right? AI can help. You can give it some source documents and say, just come up with the first draft and I'll take it from there, right? Helping you draft email replies where you're not quite certain how you want to phrase this to someone. Thinking at the global aspects of this, helps with language translation. I've had feedback from people in other geographic regions where English is not their native language. And they've said this has been a tremendous help to them and helping them find the right words to, incorporate into that document or incorporate into that email. And maybe one other use case too is just with programming, right? Writing some scripts, whether it's simple or complex, or even an example I used the other day. I knew it was going to be an insanely complex Excel formula, to analyze and parse some data. I knew it would have probably taken me the minimum 20, 30 minutes because it was going to be this big, complex, nested formula. AI turned it around in seconds, not only gave me the answer, which worked, which was correct, but also took that formula and broke it up into its individual pieces and told me how it got to the answer. So, we're finding that users are using it all the time for various personal productivity use cases.
Amazing and scary all at the same time.
It is. Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about hallucination and what you're doing to combat the potential hallucination of information from AI?
A hallucination is when the AI gives you an answer that is simply not correct, right? And there's a couple ways that you can combat that, right? I would say a good AI tool will not only hopefully give you the right answer, but it'll also tell you how it got that answer, right? It's very important that it gives you references or source materials, because I've seen many examples where it's given an answer, and if you didn't scrutinize it, that answer sounded pretty darn good, right? But when you look at the source documents, it's flat out wrong because it picked the wrong document here, and now I need to go back and maybe reprompt it to get a better answer. And you do that through education, right? You do that through education of your employees, right? Encourage them, trust but verify. Look at those source documents, and all the AI tools that we currently use today do a really good job of telling you where those sources came from.
So, Rich, you're located here in St. Louis, but you have global responsibility. Can you tell us how the adoption or use of AI differs across the globe, or does it?
There are a little bit of differences. I mean, the way we deploy the tools are the same. If you're deploying it here or you're deploying it in Europe or Asia Pacific, everybody has the same, user interface. But you have to take into account different rules and regulations. I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of regulation come out that impact us yet, right? But we're always watching to see how that will come about. But, obviously deploying AI in China, right? There's different things that you have to take into account when you deploy it in Europe. You obviously have to consult with the works councils there, right? To make sure that you're doing it in a way that, aligns with the employees', rights.
How does the AI use tools adoption, we talked about differing across the globe. What challenges did AI bring with it to IFF in the global marketplace?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say definitely first it was the pace of change, which we talked about before, especially with the generative tools and sort of the explosion in popularity. So you think about things like ChatGPT, right? That nobody had heard about it, and then everybody heard about it. I think they had, my memory serves me right, maybe 1 million users in the first 5 days, 100 million users over the first year. And everybody's looking at like, what do we do about this, right? Do we block it? Do we allow it, right? Also, you saw that every software vendor was scrambling to add AI to their tool sets. And in some cases, it's a great idea because you look at your collaboration tools or your CRM or your ERP systems, there's phenomenal amounts of data sitting in those back-end systems. And if you can use AI to make sense of that data, there's a lot of potential there, right? But what we had to do was really scramble to analyze those capabilities and determine if the AI, did it really live up to the hype? Was it really doing what people claimed it was going to be doing? Because even if you took a look at it from a software vendor standpoint, adding on those AI capabilities wasn't cheap. And in many ways, it was almost doubling the cost of your software. So it's not insignificant by any stretch. So, that was probably the first challenge. When you're ready to deploy the AI, a couple things that I would keep in mind, right, is don't assume that AI is going to be the magic wand, right? You apply AI to the system and magically everything's going to be better and you're going to know everything you need to know about this back-end data set. That doesn't always work out, right? I would say that people, data, and processes are still the most important resource that you have in your company, right? And if you have processes that aren't streamlined, applying AI to that isn't necessarily going to make it better. Some cases may even make it worse, right? If you don't have good data, it's going to be a situation of garbage in, garbage out, right? Is your data clean? Is it structured properly? Do you have the right, master data, metadata associated with it? That's going to be critical. Another thing too is to take a look at the way that you're securing your data. So if Lin and I are using the same AI and Lin performs a search and is trying to find something, and Rich didn't properly secure a confidential document that Lin shouldn't see, I can assure you that the AI is going to perform an exhaustive search across that data set. It's going to surface that document to Lin, right? So really, you want to make sure that you train your employees on the proper way to secure data. And from time to time, it can't hurt to do a security audit just to make sure that people, have set the security properly.
Yeah, the people, data, and processes. I like that. I like the thought of that because that not only informs the team as to the importance of it, right? But it removes the scariness of AI taking over my job, right?
Exactly. And I've seen that, there's obviously a little bit of concern. My take on that at this point in time is I don't see it happening anytime soon. Who knows what, happens 10 years and so forth down the future. But really what I see now is it's doing an incredible job to help augment, right, what an employee does today, right? It boosts the capabilities that you have, right?
Going through this process, what obstacles did you overcome?
Yeah, so I would say as we were at first, I think everybody was scrambling a little bit, right, and figuring out what do we do with all this new AI technology. But one of the things I think we did really well in the beginning was working together to establish an AI policy document. And I think that's key for any company that's heading in this direction, because that AI policy document starts to set the guardrails, right? It starts to educate the employees on the do's and don'ts of working with that AI technology, right? An example of that is going back to the trust but verify, right? Don't just blindly take what the AI gives you and start putting it into your business processes. And so having that AI policy helps establish that foundation. The second thing I think is also having a policy document so that employees know what to do. You got your standard AI tools that everybody knows is blessed and they should be using. What about the new ones that the employees have heard about or read about, and they see it on the internet and they want to start incorporating that? it's really educating them that you just don't go out and start uploading your corporate data to some random third-party tool on the internet, right? That you need to run that through the proper vetting process with security, with data privacy and the other teams. So having a policy document that explains how they should go about doing that is helpful as well.
And are you seeing adoption? Are you seeing cooperation, interest from the employees, or pushback?
I think we are. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously new tools out there that they want to use. New tools pop up all the time, right? One of the things that we've done to help with aligning to those policies, and I would always recommend too, is our network team has done a really good job of blocking the non-approved tools at the network layer. And it's not to be a jerk, right? It's not to make it difficult for folks, but it's to help the employee sort of self-trigger. I try to go to this new AI tool. I see it's blocked. Oh, I know IFF hasn't even looked at this tool yet, so let's run it through the proper vetting process before we start to upload our data. Now, it's a little bit of an arms race because these tools pop up every single day and we have to adjust filters. But, obviously, I think that's something that most companies should be doing.
So how did you go about determining your policies and communicating that with your employees?
Yeah, so I mean, it takes a lot of collaboration to make sure that the policies are drafted the way they should be, and we did that. And then also too, we send out training communications, required training for employees that, number one, they know that the policy exists, they know where to find it, right? They've read it, and maybe they have to answer a few easy questions about it just to make sure they didn't scroll through and click I accept. So I think that's important to the adoption as well.
Yeah, with the pace of change and the new tools being introduced, chances are they probably need to review that and acknowledge it a couple times a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, though, we did it in a way that it wasn't so specific because we know tools and technologies will come along all the time, right? And we of course, review these policies on an annual basis just to make sure nothing really needs to change there. But, it's sort of generic enough that it could fit really any AI tool that we bring in, but clear enough to the employees, what they should and shouldn't be doing.
So on a more personal note, for up and coming global leaders out there, perhaps you can share some advice. Did you know you wanted to be a digital workplace leader when you were, 5? Or what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, back then, if there was a digital workplace, the digital would have taken up an entire room inside the workplace, right? That's where the technology was at that stage. So yeah, then I don't even think a digital workplace existed, right? But when I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut, and of course that didn't quite work out for me. But I will say I could see the seeds planted for IT when I was a kid. I was relentlessly bugging my parents to get me a Commodore VIC-20, and I probably just dated myself by that statement. But I was just, yeah. What is that, right? But I was bugging them to get me that Commodore VIC-20, and finally they did. But it was with the understanding that you're not just going to sit here and play games on this thing all day. So you need to teach yourself something. And they gave me this book, and it was on basic programming. So here I was, like 8 years old, and I was just tearing through this book. And at 8 years old, I taught myself how to code in BASIC. And was I good? Probably not, but I could actually write functional programs. And believe it or not, I actually still have some of the cassette tapes, where I will not ever get rid of that, right? But, I could see the seeds planted, and that carried on through middle school, high school. I sort of set it aside, focused on sports, social life, but rekindled that love in college and studied computer science. Programming is my background. That's how I cut my teeth in IT. And, fast forward many years later, here I am.
So knowing what you know now, how would you better prepare yourself for global leadership responsibilities?
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of working for several large global companies and had the privilege to work on certain projects that had me travel to many different countries and many different regions in the world. So I've got to meet a lot of really awesome people, and many that I still consider good friends today. And it has taught me that even though, geographic regions are different, cultures are different, the world in some ways is still small, right? And that people are people no matter where you go. I mean, they come into work every day. They want to do the best job that they possibly can. And even when you take a little further step back, businesses are in business to make and sell product in the most efficient manner, make your customers happy, do it in a sustainable way, right? Where IT fits into all that is, I think, when done right, IT can be that enabler, right, to help those employees be more productive, help the businesses in the most efficient way to get that product out the door, right? So, the ways you do that is you collaborate with the businesses, right? You listen to the employees, right? And then you understand their problems. You look at the tools that you have in your IT toolbox and you try to marry the two together to solve the problems that they would have.
So what can our future global leader listeners do to better prepare themselves for what's to come?
Yeah, I'd say, in the world of technology and even AI especially, it's changing fast at a blinding pace, right? And so I would just encourage them to be nimble, right? It certainly helps if you have a passion for it, but do your best to stay on top of, everything new coming out. Have a curious mindset because you're always going to be learning something new.
Nice. So let's sum this up and actually officially answer that question. So what do the flavors of your favorite foods, the allure of a timeless fragrance, and the power of AI have in common?
Yep. So I would say here at IFF, we're always experimenting and looking at the latest AI technologies. We want to, enhance our business processes, gain better insights to our data, use it to make employees more productive, which should then result in better employee satisfaction. At the end of the day, hopefully we do a better job in serving our customers and consumers.
And make better scents and flavors for the population.
Exactly.
More effective, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. So Rich, can you summarize the guiding principles that we learned about here today?
Yep. I say we're all, everybody's learning something new, right? And we're learning how to apply AI every day to solve different business problems. My advice would be, don't just deploy it for the sake of deploying it, right? Be talking with the business. Say everybody's running around with this AI hammer looking for their nails, right? But talk to the business, understand their problems, understand what AI can and can't do right now, what problems it's best for solving. And then when you start to implement it, you're always balancing the investment versus the risk versus the reward, right? And when you finally pull the trigger on that and you're beginning to deploy it, have a good plan and make sure you're wrapping that governance and policies around it as well.
So in short, global tech leaders need to listen and collaborate across boundaries, balance investments is what I heard, the investment and the reward, and be nimble to address international and multicultural needs to move the business forward. And our future global leaders should stay curious, embrace change as a constant, and continue learning. And I would add, study international business in a formal education setting like the Boeing Institute of International Businesses program at St. Louis University. I loved my experience, and I found the cultural aspect of that just amazingly enlightening and something that I just hadn't been exposed to before. So feel free to reach out to me, listeners, if you have any questions. The international team of educators at SLU is fantastic. Rich, it's been a great discussion. Thank you for sharing your guiding principles and connecting the dots on the flavors, fragrances, and AI and the power of AI. It's been a pleasure hosting. Best of luck to you at IFF. We appreciate you sharing your story.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Great. And thanks to our listeners. Feel free to share your comments and let us know what AI topics are of interest to you these days. This is Lin Hemings for the SLU International Business Now Conversations That Matter podcast, sharing business insights beyond borders. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the SLU International Business Now Conversations That Matter podcast. We invite you to subscribe to this podcast series so you don't miss any future episodes. To learn more about the Executive Master of International Business program, please visit biib.slu.edu. Again, that's biib.slu.edu.